Hi, I'm Robert. Um, I've discussed in some other videos, if anyone's interested in checking them out, um, not just my experiences with mental illness, but my experience being a Christian conservative, which I've mentioned in other videos that I'm Christian, and some of my comments might make some believe that I'm just not serious about my Christianity. I'm sort of new toward trying to build my relationship with God and trying to learn after a life of um, in my teenage years just rejecting God and rebelling against God, and then during my mental illness being resentful of God and feeling like I'd been cursed, and then sort of during my recovery making several attempts to build my relationship with my Savior, and I always get sidetracked. And I really do want to build my relationship with Christ and come to know Him and accept Him into my life. But I'm Christian and conservative, but I'm also, like, my heart has led me to being exclusively attracted to and connecting with women in the trans community, trans women. And I just wanted to discuss something about my recent experience with my mental disorders. In another video, I started talking about my borderline personality disorder and how that's kind of cropped up. Then I sort of started to get sidetracked, and it's really hard to keep my thoughts ordered and keep on topic. I'm trying to get better at that. I know being a successful YouTube blogger, vlogger or whatever you call it on YouTube, that I'm gonna have to get better at keeping on topic. I mean, I think that's something people expect. So I'm trying to not just go to each random place my mind takes me. I'm just sort of learning to be comfortable talking in a video that I know maybe if the success I hope to find comes about, like, I'm going to be maybe talking to a global audience, and at first that thought really terrified me. But so back to topic. After 15 years of just varying degrees of delusion and hearing voices and just fearing global persecution, I found a measure of recovery, a pretty significant measure of recovery, after they took me off of medicine that just wasn't working and put me on something called Thorazine, that I just consider to be my wonder drug. It's helped me be able to live a life that I've never been able to imagine I would ever get to live again. Like, I would have been very scared to even entertain the idea that I would ever be able to live a life like this, because feelings of hope in my early mental disorder, they were always mocked and laughed at and ridiculed, and like they didn't allow me to have hope. And I've come to realize, especially with the help of my ex fiance that I just tragically had to end things with. I have videos talking about her and how hard that was on me, but she helped me to realize that a lot of what I experienced just wasn't true, and I've never been able to believe that. And so, that's just one of the many experiences I've had with coming to terms with and learning to understand and learning to navigate some of my mental issues in the last 3 years, after I've started to have my mental state decline after several years of stability and most of my symptoms being in remission. When I started dating trans women, my family reacted badly enough that it started to resurface some of those old fears and paranoias. But the most damaging thing to my life that sort of occurred when I started dating trans women and got those negative reactions was when I was a teenager. I had borderline personality disorder, and my opinion was, the way I understood it, and my therapist agreed with me, was that when my schizophrenia first hit, it hit so hard and so bad that it sort of put my just buried my borderline personality disorder, because like I guess my mind could only take so much, and like the paranoid schizophrenia was just so bad, like my mind didn't have room to entertain other disorders. And once my schizophrenia started to get under control several years ago, I started to sort of get obsessed and see how far I could take my recovery. And I did all kinds of things. I quit smoking. I quit drinking. These were multi-year addictions, more than a decade each. And I was able to get them out of my life. And I started a health journey. I lost 100 pounds. And I started going back to school. I got my GED, and I sort of just took on too much too fast, because I just felt so free of just the feeling that I couldn't do anything. I would never be able to achieve. I would never even be able to function. When I realized this wasn't true, I just started to just take on so much. It was just so exhilarating to be able to feel like I could enjoy life. And once I started dating, all of this tremendous pressure I was putting on my mind sort of started to unravel it, kind of breaking it. And the negative reaction to from my family actually drove me to my first suicide attempt in 12 years. And it was at that point that I realized things were getting out of control and I really needed help. And like I said, my therapist and my belief is that once I started to get better and I started to take on all of these extra responsibilities and they were starting to overwhelm me, that my long buried borderline personality disorder started to come to the surface and started to really just grow and in its influence on my mind and my life, and it got out of control. And then my paranoia started to come back, and they sort of started to start feeding off each other. One would cause the other to grow worse, and then the other would cause the other to grow worse, and it was just a kind of unending, unhealthy growing of each feeding the other. And it got to the point where I was destroying relationships. I was starting to fall into despair and depression. And I started a TikTok journey when I realized how bad my depression was getting when I was with my last fiance, and I was worried about losing her. And the TikTok journey was basically just trying to see if I could just sort of, as I put it, pick myself up by the bootstraps and just get everything under control that I was losing the ability to manage in this depression. And I've come a long ways, but I also realized along this journey that I needed help. I needed to reach out to my doctor and my therapist. And I don't know if anyone's interested in even hearing this stuff. I'm just kind of expanding on the seriousness of mental illness and how appalled I am that people would fake mental illness. I hope that you see with the stuff that I've shared that mental illness can be very debilitating and can be very destructive to not just your mind, but your heart and your body and your soul. And it's not something that anybody should aspire to or think that it brings them some kind of unique personality that they can use to better their social standing. It's just it's not good, and it's not something anyone should. If you don't have mental illness, you should embrace that and you should be glad for it. I know there's lots of varying degrees of mental illness, and they're all serious at their most extremes. I've realized over the last few years that even depression at its extreme can be very, very hard to deal with. It can be pretty debilitating as well. My anxiety and my borderline personality disorder and my depression over the last few years, they've been worse than my paranoid schizophrenia has, as far as um, taking me back from the stability I found. I've been working for the last 5 years, and I've been pretty consistent with it and pretty stable with it. And I've just watched a really strong work ethic that I had built sort of fall apart as I've just been struggling to show up to work. And I finally had to realize that as I was trying to branch out into more career oriented jobs, that they just weren't working out, and they were just maybe not a good fit for my disability. And I just decided I was going to go back to where I had found the most success, back to janitorial, and I found a job that's working and is really helpful. But I guess I'll just finish. I'm trying to keep these videos not as long as some of the others I've made. I know that people don't like watching really long videos, but I'm just going to finish by saying that I'm making these videos in the hopes that I can help people get an understanding of what it's like to suffer mental illness, and to maybe sort of inspire people who are suffering something similar, who maybe don't have hope like I didn't, that there is hope and just don't give up. And also to help people who, with this transgender issue is just dividing and destroying society, just the extremes on each end, and the absolute refusal to maybe give a little on your position, and try to find something we can unify on. And I to me, that thing we can unify on is that we're all members of the human race. We're all sons and daughters and of God. And if you feel like your gender is somewhere outside a son or a daughter, I mean, I'm still learning. I don't really comprehend that. And I mean, I do hold the belief that we are all born male and female, and that we were created for a purpose. And maybe if you suffer with gender dysphoria, maybe your purpose lies somewhere in following the path in your heart. And just, I don't think that God makes mistakes. And if you feel like you were born in the wrong body, I mean, maybe some people might see this as heresy, as, it's teaching, speaking against the teachings of many credible churches. But my opinion is that if God created you to be a man, and he also created what is inside you, and if you feel completely at odds with that role as it is, to where it's causing you mental trauma, then it's not mine or anyone else's duty, or even we don't even have a right to tell somebody that they can't make the decision that they need to find healing. And many people in the conservative movement don't realize that people do find healing from transition. There are people who do. I mean, look at Blair White, my favorite YouTuber. She's found tremendous healing from transitioning, and I highly respect her views, and I think her views are more in line with bridging the gap and finding healing between the two warring sides of this social issue that's just, I mean, is front and center of what's dividing us. It's one of the core issues that are dividing us as a society. And I see the views on both sides, and I sympathize with the views on both sides, and I understand the views on both sides. And I'm not gonna condemn either side, other than the people who just aren't willing to give or take at all in this issue of to try to help us to heal. I mean, there's people on both sides that just are not interested in even attempting to understand the other side. And like I said, I do get it. People in the conservative movement tend to only see the radicals in the LGBTQ community, and people in the LGBTQ community tend to only see the radicals in the conservative community. But there are people who like are genuinely interested in trying to find acceptance and trying to just live their lives, and is something I'm struggling with. You know, coming to terms with my attractions and the decision I've made in my life that I know goes against the teachings of God, and I don't know where that will lead me in the afterlife. But you know, after the life that I've lived and the suffering I've endured, I don't think God would hold it against me to find love in this life, however I can find it. I mean, I have faced real struggle with finding anybody who is willing to accept me for who I am, and all the warts that comes with, like all of the, I mean, having a relationship with someone with paranoid schizophrenia is not an easy thing. And I'm sorry, these videos are getting really long. I'm trying to learn to keep them more brief, but I mean, I found the most acceptance in the trans community, and I think that the connection, not just acceptance, but like genuine connection, and I think that connection comes from a shared understanding of what it's like to feel foreign and to be perceived as sort of alien and wrong. And I don't know. I hope to find some kind of healing, and I hope to help the world to find some kind of healing. We are so much more than our differences. I've said many times that we live in a country that is so wonderful that we are only as divided as we choose to be. And unfortunately, we've decided to change the United States of America into the divided States of America. And I hope to be a voice to try to help bring it back to a place of unity. And hopefully, as I grow more comfortable with talking and sharing my thoughts and keeping them more organized and more on focus and less struggle with finding words when I'm getting nervous, I hope somebody follows me on this journey, and that I make progress, and that I will be able to hopefully help to maybe make the world a little bit less of a hateful place. And I'm not going to point the accusation of hate at one side or the other. We're both sides need to try to come together and give a little bit on so many issues in this world. And just thank you for watching. If you like this, or you think that you might like to see where this goes, and as I do try to get better at it, just thank you for watching. And if you like it, like or subscribe, and hopefully the next one I'll get a little better at. And thank you. Bye.